Hey kiddos. Now it's recording. Hi guys. So, please behave for the sub. I don't know who the sub is. Please behave. I'll be back Thursday. I have two PowerPoints for you. So again, like always, as you go through them, pause, write down notes that you might want to ask me when I get back. You can email me the questions. Remember, I am actually technically still at school, so if anything goes wrong, I guess you can have them get me. Please don't have things go wrong and have them get me. I don't want to come in upset. So, let's start this off. There might be two videos. I also do want you to watch the TED Ed Talks that involve gas exchange, which are going to be on one of the slides, and I'll go back to it in a little bit. So let's first start with this one. If I can make it go all big. Okay, so gas exchange system. Why do I have two slides of that? So I will eventually, and I'll put these on the link on my Weebly underneath the two videos or above the two videos. It'll be somewhere up there. I do want you to go to both of them. I do want you to watch them because I really think that the other ones that we watched were really beneficial to you guys. If you disagree with me, I don't care. So, reviewing of terminology. Respiration, ventilation, gas exchange, and diffusion. All of these are ones we learned in IGSE. I know some of you haven't learned in IGSE. You know who you are because you're probably muttering to yourself right now. This is why it's a review. And I went backwards. Anyway, respiration is the biochemical process by which energy is released from glucose or other energy resources such as fats. Respiration is not breathing. I have yelled at you numerous times in biology in IGSE that this is not the case. Do not tell me the case as AS Bio students. I will just fail you at that point. Ventilation is a sequence of breathing movements that moves gases to and from the internal gas exchange surface. Gas exchange is oxygen that passes from the atmosphere into the blood, and the carbon dioxide passes out entirely by diffusion. The movement of the gases are independent of one another. It doesn't swap with each other. So, and we'll get to it. It's really simple how it does it. It just seems difficult, and if you don't find it difficult, yay. And then diffusion is a substance that moves from high concentration to an area to a place of lower concentration. Hopefully you haven't forgotten diffusion, given the fact that we learned it multiple months ago. And again, super upset. Possible failure. We breathe without having to think about it. So the primary function of breathing is to supply oxygen for respiration. So the rate of which cells require energy in the form of ATP is very much going to vary. The types of cells that need vast amounts of energy include active muscle cells, cells producing useful substances such as enzymes, and obviously brain cells. That's why people can go brain dead, but whatever, die. Sorry, that's my roommate. So the removal of carbon dioxide is the waste product of respiration. It's also the vital function of breathing. Carbon dioxide produces an acid solution as it accumulates the pH of the cell and blood is lowered. The pH is normally maintained at a pH of 7.4, and any variation is going to obviously upset the ionic balance. The lungs have a surface area that's roughly 35 times the area of the surface of the body, so that's approximately 70 meters squared. Surface area-wise, if you don't know what meters are, go ask Mr. Melendez. The human body has a low surface area to volume ratio. A large surface area is needed for exchange in the lungs. Breathing movements, i.e. ventilation, ensures that there is a good supply of oxygen that reaches the gas exchange surface and the rate at which this happens can be varied. The lungs are elastic structures. They are passive and are moved only as a result of movements of the structures around them. Sorry, I went by that too fast. Again, as I'm going through this, please make sure that you are pausing the lectures and taking notes as you do it. So, continuing how we breathe, inspiration. The diaphragm is going to contract and it's going to flatten. So, if a good way of you to physically, visibly, whatever, see this is just take a very deep breath in, and if you feel like right above your stomach, and if you think your stomach's at your belly button, it's not. So again, IGSI. It's going to be at the edges of the rib cage. That is flattening. Now, your external intercostal muscles are contracting. So again, if you breathe in, you're going to have your rib cage that's going to start contracting, and that's why it becomes tighter. Now, the internal intercostal muscles are relaxing. And then again, like I mentioned earlier, the rib cage moves upwards and outwards. Now, the real ability is to be able to breathe in and still be able to talk, which your teacher can do. So take that. This also causes an increase in cavity volume. It causes a decrease in pulmonary pressure, and atmospheric pressure is now greater than pulmonary pressure, so air is forced into the lungs. Now, expiration is actually a passive process. The diaphragm is going to relax, so it's going to kind of cup back upwards. The external intercostal muscles relax. So again, breathe in, and then if you breathe out, your rib cages are going to go out, meaning that your internal intercostal muscles are contracting. The rib cage moves downward and inward. It causes a decrease in cavity volume, causes an increase in pulmonary pressure. That means now that the pulmonary pressure is greater than the atmospheric pressure, so the air is forced out of the lungs. So here's a picture of the respiratory system diagram. I realize it doesn't have like the ribs and the diaphragm. Just know that the ribs are like in this area and the diaphragm's like cupping it just like this. It kind of looks like those old-timey like poppers that you would pop down and eventually would pop up. If you don't know what I'm talking about, thanks for making me feel old. Good thing I'm not there. So you have your nasal cavity, you have your nostrils. You can breathe in through there. You can also technically breathe in through your mouth. Either way is going to go into your trachea. From your trachea, you're going to go into the bronchiole, which leads into the bronchus, which has the right lungs. From the bronchus, you're going to have the bronchioles, the alveoli, and then the alveoli look like this. So I think we talked about it once maybe, and forgive me if I'm forgetting. But I think I once showed you like all of the capillaries that are surrounded. Maybe I did. But all the presence of all the capillaries and veins and arteries that can be in a human body. Each of those little tiny nubs that are alveoli, so think about like a bunch of grapes. Each of them is wrapped around by capillaries, all of which have a pulmonary vein and a pulmonary artery, which come from the heart. That I remember I taught you. And so that one is what allows the passage of gas exchange to be occurring. So it goes mouth, nasal cavity, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, and then back out. I already said inspiration. I already said expiration. Now the functions of the key structure in the lungs. So your nasal cavity, you have your sinuses. Sinuses actually have a really good blood supply. The blood is warm and moistens. The air entering the lungs. The warm air holds more moisture, in fact. It filters the air. Cells in the sinus membrane secrete mucus, which contains a sticky protein that traps dust and bacteria. This does lower the chance of infection. It also results in people who have severe sinus allergies to have a lot of sniffly, runny noses and sound gross, like your teacher. And I'm drinking tea. Trachea is a wide tube which carries air to the bronchus. There are about 20 rings of hard cartilage that keep the air passage open during pressure changes. So you have to think about the fact that you are constantly having different pressures coming in and out of your lungs, and it has to be this very hard passage that makes it so it doesn't collapse. A good way to think about it is that, like, if you cup your hand and like slam it on someone's ear, you can actually damage the inner ear because of the pressure that you're putting in. So our trachea has the ability to withstand that. Now, that's not to say that it can't be damaged, but it can withstand all those pressures. The cartilage rings are C-shaped. They're separated by muscle and elastic tissue. The soft tissue also allows the trachea to be flexible and to stretch. The bronchus, which are two bronchi, also have cartilage in the walls to keep them open. It's the first branch of the trachea. It allows the passage of air into the bronchioles. Bronchioles have smaller branches of the bronchi. They end in the cluster of the alveoli. They are the smaller bronchioles have only muscle and elastic fibers, so they can contract and relax easily during ventilation. And so alveolus it means many alveoli. Like, it's literally like each of these are like a bunch of grapes. They are mini air sacs. So another good way to think about it is like what's that thing called? The thing that you pop. Bubble wrap. So it's like a lot of bubble wraps just like trapped into a tiny little area, but like thousands of them in your lungs. It honestly, if you ever like squeeze lungs, it feels exactly like bubble wrap, just like a million times smaller. It's really fun, but not advisable. It's lined with epitheliums. There's a gas exchange surface. It's covered with a network of capillaries. It's approximately 350 million in each lung. That's how many cells, or how many alveoli. It provides a large surface area for gas exchange. And yeah. The gas exchange surface. In order to have efficient diffusion taking place, a gas exchange surface must have the following: a large surface area, a short distance of diffusion, a large concentration difference on opposite sides of the surface, and in the human lungs, the large surface area is achieved by having a huge number of very small alveoli. So the alveoli are covered with a network of blood capillaries. The alveolar wall cells are flattened with only a thin layer of cytoplasm between their cell surface membranes. The capillary walls also consist of very thin cells. Remember, capillaries are like 1 cell thick. Red blood cells touch the walls of the capillaries as they pass through. The structure serves to minimize the distance that gases have to diffuse between the air and the blood. The gas exchange surface, they're all fully permeable. This does allow oxygen to pass into the cells, but it also actually allows water to pass out. The inner surface of the alveolus are all covered with a very thin layer of water. So this actually, the rate of diffusion of gases is lower in water than the air, and the water increases the distance for diffusion. So this actually ends up slowing down the rate of diffusion, which is quite interesting if you think about like how each of the little air sacs has this ability. And then, because my timer is about to run out, so I'm pretty sure there's actually gonna be like 4 or 5 videos you watch, and I'm sorry. Why is the layer of water so important despite its disadvantages? So think about what the disadvantages would be to the fact that you have water in your lungs.